my babes. Welcome. If this is the first video you've ever seen on our channel because you're here for Only Murders in the Building content, it is wonderful to have you. Yay, you're here. You look great. I love your hair. So, fun fact about this video, it was filmed way before season 3 ever premiered, but life got in the way and someone didn't have time to edit it in time for the season 3 premiere. So, now that season 3 has completed, if you're feeling like you miss Only Murders in the Building, you're not alone. Don't we all? Go back, rewatch season 1, and then enjoy this little commentary here. And it's so funny because we've come so far since this is the first episode the three of us ever talked about Only Murders in the Building. And you can really kind of tell, we're just kind of getting used to the characters. We haven't connected with the YouTube audience yet, but now we're doing it. And now that Only Murders in the Building is over, we've gotten so many new subscribers. Speaking of which, if you enjoy our content, if you've been liking our Only Murders in the Building coverage and you want to see more videos from us, please subscribe to the channel. It is really friggin' hard to get monetized on YouTube. Lord knows we're trying. We're almost there. We're getting there. Close to 500 subscribers. It is thrilling. And our goal is 1,000 subscribers, obviously, because then that's the only requirement we're lacking at this point to get monetized. So if you want to do some charity work, if you want to do your good deed for the day, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. So now, without further ado, get your tits up and enjoy our season 1 recap. And comment below and let us know what else you'd like us to cover. We're still considering maybe going back to Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or we're considering covering other shows coming November. So let us know. We take requests. We take your thoughts into deep consideration, truly. So, okay, we love you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Enjoy, my babies. Bye.
Zoom. She said zoom. Have you ever seen Xenon Girl, the 21st Century, the Disney Channel? Right? Protozoa.
Hello?
Zoom.
No.
Make my heart go.
I think I was singing like some horrible like early 90s song like that was really inappropriate.
Sarah, because we're like 2 or 3 years apart in age, I think we're like exactly right.
Yep.
We were at that. We had that same,
same,
Disney
like,
Channel moment in time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love it.
And a 5, a 6, a 5, 6, 7, 8. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Jade.
I'm Kara.
And I'm Erica.
And this is Perfectly Marvelous, a podcast dedicated to the hit Hulu show Only Murders in the Building. Woo!
Yay!
Today's
Feels good.
episode, it does. We are recapping and reviewing all of Only Murders season 1. Let's go.
Without further ado, it's up, my babies.
It's up.
It's up.
Woo! All right, now spoiler warning. If you have not watched all of Only Murders in the Building season 1, maybe don't watch this because we're going to spoil it all. We're going to do our very, very best to we're definitely not going to spoil the end of season 2. We might unintentionally make a couple of season 2 references or something, but we're going to do our best to keep away from season 2 spoilers. So if you haven't seen season 2 yet, you're fine. But if you haven't seen season 1, proceed with caution because we're going to spoil everything in 3, 2, 1. Jen did it. Okay, spoiled. That felt good. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
So, and before we start, I would also like to welcome our new listeners because I know that we're going to get a little, we're going to get a new crowd that doesn't know us from our Marvelous Mrs. Maisel podcast. And if you don't know us from that podcast, but you love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, check it out. That's why we're called Perfectly Marvelous here. We just wanted to keep the name because perfectly marvelous we are. Always and forever. And that's why we say tits up, because that is a Marvelous Mrs. Maisel thing. Another Marvelous Mrs. Maisel thing. We start off the podcast with something called our most marvelous moment.
Okay.
Season 1, OMITB. What's your most marvelous moment?
I absolutely love Steve Martin, especially anytime he gets to do any sort of physical comedy as well.
Oh God, yeah.
So my most marvelous moment is actually in the last episode of season 1 after Jan has drugged Charles and Mabel and Oliver basically have to deal with him trying to get out of the building. And I just, every single time I watch that episode, I crack up just like the first time.
Yep,
Steve Martin, especially when he's on the elevator And it's just that his
And Uma and Bunny are such bitches.
yes.
Just
So I was
talking
like, he's
about-
had a little too much. Like it's just that whole scene and Steve Martin's physical comedy and timing. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good. I can't wait to get there when we recap, as we recap. Oh,
Mhm.
so good.
I agree.
Okay, Erica, what you got? What's your most marvelous moment?
Okay. I had to think about this again. There's so many to choose from, but I think for my favorite episode of the entire season, which was episode 7, The Boy from 6B, I think like the chills I got from when Nathan Lane
Just
was
got a chill.
singing Bill, and but of course
Too.
the entire episode is silent, and
Yep.
I could hear him, I could hear his voice, I could hear him just through that, the acting and the physicality of him, just like
Mhm.
grasping his son Theo, and it was just so much. But that episode, I just like, I could watch that one as a standalone
Good one.
anytime.
Yeah. Oh, seeing Nathan Lane in that way.
Mhm.
Ah, so
Mhm.
good.
He's a good villain. He's a good villain.
Right?
Excellent.
Unexpectedly. Like never
Mhm.
didn't see that one coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I am gonna share some audio here.
Still got a shot. 5, 6, 7, 8. It takes a particular
That is mine.
Oh
So,
God.
so listeners,
I can see it. I can see it.
ever
Yeah.
since my very first podcast that I ever hosted as like the main host, I don't know why the way I always start it 5, 6, 7, 8. It just gets me into it. It's because I'm a theater person. I need give me an action. I need
Mhm.
that. So I give it to myself by saying a 5, 6, 7, 8. And as I was doing my rewatch, and I saw
Gosh.
Oliver on one knee holding his auditions. And probably episode 3 is my favorite episode overall because of those Oliver auditions, that I'm just like,
Yeah.
I am so
Love
Oliver.
them.
When I saw
That's
him go
good.
a 5, 6, 7, 8, I was like, yes. I got so excited. So that's my most marvelous moment. Oh,
Mm.
it's so grand. All right, let's get into it. I'm so excited right now. All right. So episode 1 is called True Crime. It's directed by Jamie Babbitt. And the writers on this episode are just Steve Martin and John Hoffman. Also credited on every episode, Madeline George and Stephen Markley, and their story editors. And then Ben Philippe is a staff writer. At the beginning, you get this cold open, right? We're flash forwarding all the way to the end. Mabel's on her knees. She's over tie-dye guy. Charles and Oliver rush in, and Mabel says, "It's not what you think." Then cut to, real time. We're
Mhm.
introduced to Charles, Mabel, and Oliver, and we get each of their unique perspectives on New York. They then share the elevator to their apartment along with Tim Kono. They all go home and listen to the same true crime podcast, All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma by Cinda Canning. And then the building alarm goes off. And while everyone is evacuating and going down the stairs, tie-dye hoodie guy is going up the stairs. And Charles and Oliver end up sitting together at the restaurant nearby, and then they're joined by Mabel. And they all start listening to the podcast together and try to solve the mystery, and it's so cute. And then the three of them go back to the apartment, and they're trying to get in, and they end up sneaking up to the 9th floor, where they see Tim Kono's dead body, shot in the head, and Detective Williams assures them it is a suicide and tells them to stay out of it. All right, Erica, starting with you, babe. What you got?
Yeah, so I think what I really was really taken by that is just the way they introduced the story, and they brought everybody together in the very beginning, and how like Charles is this kind of I don't want to call him a has-been, but like he's Brazos, the actor.
He's kind of
from
a has-been.
Night.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Call a spade a
I
spade.
got. I mean, but because it's Steve Martin, it's so weird to see him like so not appreciated, like when he was like walking down the streets, and like the guy came up and talked to him, and then eventually afterwards he's like, "You want a picture?" And it was
Oh yeah.
he has Charles actually take a picture of him and his girl. So I just
Ugh.
it was just like kind of like, oh, he's kind of a little pathetic, and it's sad, and but he's
No,
such an
totally.
interesting character that when you really kind of dig into him. And I just like just the dichotomy of like everybody is so different from each other, and how they
Yeah.
get together,
Mhm.
but they have the same three are so they all have this interest in this podcast, which I love it. It's so,
Oh, yeah.
it was so good.
I love how you go to Charles to talk about Charles first. Guess who stands
I
out
love
most to
it.
Erica?
Yeah, he does. And I love his
Ugh.
little hat. I love
Oh,
his little
yes.
hat.
Pork
He's
pie hat.
precious.
Yes,
know.
I love it. I need
I know.
one.
I love how he's like, it speaks to his character so much. He's like trying to it like sets the tone for how he is. You know, he's trying to have this like happy encounter, but like depression kind of can't help but like follow him
Mhm.
everywhere. Like he's trying so hard
Yeah.
to have this happy exchange, and the
Poor
universe,
Brazos.
nope.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was having a really hard time not nerding out too hard in terms of true crime because, I don't know.
See,
if
this
you
is
guys...
why you're totally Mabel. I feel like
Mhm.
she's the hardest into the true crime aspect of it, you know?
That's true. But so I was a big fan. Like I have always been into true crime from a very young age. My dad gave me, Helter Skelter to read when I was 12 because I had basically read everything else in our house at that point. And he was like, all right, here you go. So I knew I wanted to be a prosecutor at that point, and I was just fascinated, everything true crime. And so when Serial, the podcast, came out, I
Oh,
was
yes.
all in.
Oh,
And
nice.
okay, so this is going to be fun, Jade. So Serial
Tell
is
me.
basically what is inspiring the All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma podcast. That's what they're basing
You
it
would know
on.
this.
Yep. And so Cinda Canning is essentially a parody of Sarah Koenig, who started the Serial podcast. And there was even kind of a little bit of beef between the person who wrote and composed the Serial podcast piano intro theme song and the Only Murders in the Building composer, because they
Ooh.
sound so similar. And I remember the
Nice.
very first time watching the episode and hearing that piano, I was just like, holy shit, that sounds like Serial. And then Googling it and realizing how much they based on Serial was fascinating, because Serial really did kind of kick off this more pop culture-y mainstream consumption of true crime. And I just love, I love how they captured that perfectly here with the three of them obsessing and bonding over it. And also I love Detective Williams basically being like, fuck, like what true crime podcast are you guys all obsessed with?
Love her.
Like that was very realistic. But
I feel like
just,
Serial was the first podcast that I ever heard of. Like I feel
Yeah.
like that was my introduction to podcasts.
Me too.
Was Serial. Yeah.
You guys are both into true crime, right? Like a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
I'm
it's so
not
funny.
as smart as Kara with her background,
That's-
but I do love it. It's fascinating.
It's another reason that I am so Oliver. I feel like I'm just more Martin Short than anything else, because like I've told you guys this before. Like I've been compared to two male actors in my life, Jim Carrey and Martin Short, and I'm trying to take this as a compliment.
I want to
I
see you
think
do
that
the
is an
inner space
excellent
dance.
compliment.
It is.
Oh my God.
It is. I want you to do the dance, recreate the dance from Inner Space, and then I'll love you forever.
I will do that. Hey,
Like Serial does a great job. Excuse Daryl waking up now on my chest. Daryl, for those of you who don't know, is a bearded dragon. That is mine. But
get on that Patreon so you can see Daryl.
Yeah.
In all
Serial
her glory.
basically is one of the only true crime podcasts that I think discuss the subject in an ethical way. And it eventually led to Adnan Syed being released. And it's pretty amazing. If you haven't listened to that, I would definitely encourage you to do it, even though it's years old. But I think it's fascinating looking at Only Murders in the Building to see like through the lens of what that true crime obsession has spawned, and just like a little parody of it, showing the real life effects. And I think it's brilliant on so many levels, and I'm gonna have to contain myself from
Contain yourself.
Yeah,
You
never
nerding
never
out
have to
too
contain
hard.
yourself.
I know, but the Serial parallels, I love. And then I also love the Easter eggs that start from the pilot episode in the beginning of all the credits, and how this one, at the end of the credits, it's literally an actual Easter egg on the Arconia. It just makes me happy.
I didn't see that.
Yes, every single one. It's between like the two cherubs in the
do know
doorway.
that the credits are different and they have little Easter eggs like inserted into them. So the credits are something to look out for when season 3 begins, because they do
For
give you kind of
sure.
clues.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember when the angel hint was dropped, there was like an angel shadow on the side of the building and yeah, stuff like that. It's so cool. I was gonna say, I realized I never finished my thought when I said I'm most like Oliver, or more like Martin Short, because Oliver is into true crime, but Martin Short has said he's not into true crime. I am like, now that you're talking about Serial, I may have to look into this. Like, I don't know. I'm so hesitant because yeah, as Martin Short has said, like there's so much depression in the world. There's so much sadness and crazy things, scary things that it like depresses me to look into true crime. But I'm a mystery gal.
You
and
are.
murder mysteries are my genre. So that's why I am all in. Only
That's the
murders.
thing. What you just said sparked something else that I thought of with this one, that Mabel, so Mabel being this young woman living in New York, listening to true crime, there are all sorts of different theories and bits of commentary about why young women in particular are so into true crime, and how it's essentially almost like a survival tactic where you listen to all this stuff and it helps you know what to look out for. And I just love Mabel talking about, it's living in New York City. It's a place that makes you binge Dateline to find out how not to end up on Dateline.
Yeah.
And her
something I feel like
dream,
Kara would totally say.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's so accurate. Like her character is so spot on with the true crime obsession. Whereas
she's such a hot young New Yorker, in her fashionista armor with like her headphones, like the do not disturb sign, her sunglasses, she's walking all tough and she's got her guard up. Like she's fully aware of the danger around her. And like, I feel like Mabel would know how to protect herself with like weekly kickboxing lessons. And like, that's why I call Kara the resident Mabel, because I just feel like that's the most, you're right on that level,
Yeah.
you got that knitting needle and you're ready to go. Take them down to the bone.
But
there are knitting needles downstairs, and I did Taekwondo, so there you go.
There you go.
Badass Kara. No, but it's kind of interesting that how we're introduced to Mabel, that she's like really, she is really vulnerable under her tough exterior. And,
right.
Oh yeah.
And I think that they all kind of are. You bring up a good point, Erica, the vulnerability in that way. And I just love that in the beginning, the whole show, especially the first season, getting to know these characters is unfolding how different they are and how similar.
And how sad.
It's true.
They all are.
Yeah.
They all have a lot of sadness and past trauma that comes out.
And
but
like this
a lot of humor to
podcast-
my kind of like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they're all a little lonely.
Yeah, they're all a little lonely. And this podcast is like their little rush of excitement, like they get in their empty lives, like the adventure to the 9th floor, and they're all like, I'm in, let's go, let's do it. You're on my level, It's so cool. And of course we get the introduction to Detective Williams. Divine Joy Randolph is this actress's name, and I love her. Every scene she's in, every episode, I get so excited. I am so in love with this actor. She's fantastic.
She's great.
The only other note I have is that I love that Oliver has a baby stroller for Winnie, because I was just telling the girls before we started this podcast, I had a dog, a French bulldog. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl. And Frenchies can't walk for very long. So whenever we take her for a walk, we had to take the stroller with us, because she would, halfway through the walk, she would just be like too poop to pop. And so we'd have to put her in the stroller and wheel her home. And I also, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I had a bunny named Winnie.
Aww.
Just see, like, I'm very Oliver. All right, let's move it on. So next, they all meet up again to go to the trash room to look for clues about Tim Kono. And they find a suicide note, and they case closed, right? And so they all agree to drop the mystery investigation. The next day, Oliver goes to visit his son and his grandkids, and we find out he's out of work. He needs to borrow money again. And meanwhile, Mabel and Charles attempt to break into Bunny's apartment to get Tim Kono's lost package. And Charles talks about why he's single. He talks about his father, and Mabel opens up to Charles about her Hardy Boys group. Erica, what you got?
Yeah, we really kind of dug into like their past a little bit. And, I think we didn't really quite get like Charles's like presentation was like really weird. It was like very like, he's like he had lots of rituals, and but like I'm like, is OCD? Is he neurodivergent? Is there loss? Like, this kind of like needing to do these to kind of to however to like, to make himself feel better. But like that like stuck out so much to me, was like the whole making of the eggs and his omelet with the eggs and peppers, and then instantly throwing it away. But
I always get like, wow, you got to be real depressed to just
Yeah.
continually throw away your omelet. It
It
looks so
was so
delicious.
sad. Like, I mean, like, it was very depressing. Like, and even Oliver's, like, as soon as I saw, I'm like, oh God, this is so awkward. And you could see with his son, it's like, oh, the kids are not even here, and it just like, you're like, oh man, these guys are all really down, and they're, I mean, we didn't get too much on Mabel's yet, but I know Mabel's kind of like builds on as we learn about who the Hardy Boys are.
Mysterious Mabel.
Yeah, she is.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the only other thing I noticed about this whole situation that really was interesting was that he's auditioning for parts with no lines. I put that as a note, but yeah, no, I really liked how flawed these characters are. They're not perfect. They're not caricatures. They're like, they have something behind these like interesting exteriors. Yeah.
And we find out later they all kind of they lost someone, whether it's death or, in Oliver's case, he like fucked up, got divorced. They're all kind of estranged from their family or the people who were closest to them. Yeah. Tara, what you got?
Just what stuck out to me in this part of the episode is just they're all kind of starved for that connection, and I love seeing them like come together and find it. And that moment when both Mabel and Charles have that realization, like, wait a second, he had a garbage bag, and they see each other on the elevator.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think that was the point when I was all in. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Like they're ready for it. And I don't know, like the chemistry immediately between Selena Gomez and Martin Short and Steve Martin is palpable. And I love
magical.
How good of a job. Like, we know who these characters are pretty much from the get-go. I think they do a great job at really fleshing them out without revealing too much. Like, we know so much about them right off the bat. And I think that's part of the reason why so many people got hooked so quickly.
I agree.
Right on. All right,
it's
moving on.
A strong pilot. I like,
it is such a strong pilot. Yes.
Very.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, so now Charles and Mabel find an engagement ring in Tim's package. Dun, dun, dun. They text Oliver, and each of them have a little bounce back moment. They're all bouncing back into life, It's so good. They all go over to Oliver's house, and then they start the podcast. They plan their investigation, and at the end we see Mabel's picture. She was friends with Tim Kono. They had this Hardy Boys. He was one of the Hardy Boys, right? Dun dun dun.
I love the cliffhangers in every episode. I love it. And you're like, come on.
That reveal was so good.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I melt. Martin Short's face when he gets that text is so adorable. It's like, I'm always struck by, Charles, his speech when he was talking about how he might be like his father. Like, Steve Martin just acts the shit out of that. And same thing with Oliver and talking to his son, and he says he's like ashamed of himself. He's like, he says something like, I'm embarrassed of myself, or I'm disgusted by myself, and I just like, I always have this, I relate, to be that down on yourself. We've all had those moments. And what else?
Yeah. When they had their bounce back moments, I loved how they like could kind of gradually, like, more, I would love to see how they recreated that whole
I
him
know.
falling off that was like, but that was like
I
the
know.
only, like, that was like the weirdest moment of the entire series. I don't know if they did anything
Yes.
else like
Well,
that.
they
It
have
was-
a lot of these surreal things that they do
Mhm.
in this show, and that was this
Mhm.
this was a high contender for my most marvelous moment of season
Yeah.
1,
Mhm.
because this was the first moment in this show when I realized, oh, this show is doing something
Mhm.
different. This is
Yeah.
not your average TV show. This is special because they
is.
have these elevated out of reality surreal moments, kind of like
Mhm.
when we go inside Oliver's head and he's 5, 6, 7, 8 and
Mhm.
doing the auditions, like what a cool way to tell a story to
Mhm.
Yeah.
get it from each character's perspective and for Oliver it's like going into his head and how he's working out who to
Mhm.
consider as a suspect. He has to like hold auditions for them because that's the way his mind processes things.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Great. We'll get there. I know, sorry,
Yeah.
jumping ahead. What
Yeah.
else?
like-
Charles, he changes his routine instead of doing it like that. There was this, but that also
Mhm.
we learn where the omelet kind of starts. The neighbor said it reminds me
Yeah.
of Lucy, and we don't know who Lucy is just then, but we know that
Mhm.
Lucy was special to Charles.
Right.
But yeah, I do like that. It was really good.
Well, and I think this portion of the episode is just so kind of smart and poignant because, as
Poignant.
the neighbor is mentioning Lucy and we're all just like, oh, who's Lucy? Like, what's the
Mhm.
story here? Charles, in his voiceover, is saying a great true crime mystery unreels itself like an onion. First the crime, then the characters, then their secrets, which
So
is
meta.
exactly how this episode is
So
laid
meta.
out. Like at the very beginning,
Mhm.
we see Mabel there standing over this bloodied body. We see them reacting to this murder that's happened in the building and all of them coming together and learning about them. And I love the meta aspect of it.
Kara,
I think
you're reading my
so
notes,
smart.
babe, as you always do. I said I love the
Preach.
meta call outs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the end of this episode is like it's the theme of our
So
show,
good.
right? And
Mhm.
Mabel comes in, they're the secrets of the fun part. Who's telling the truth? Who's lying? What are they hiding?
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, sometimes it's easier to figure out someone else's secret than it is to deal with your own.
Oh,
Ain't that
yes.
the truth of life? Also,
Uh-huh.
I found it, and maybe this is inappropriate to say, I don't know, but whatever. It's my freaking podcast. I mean, it's our podcast. What am I talking about? God, I'm such a selfish bee. No, so in the end, we see like Selena Gomez in the shower, right? And like get a lot of major side boob.
Yeah.
I was like,
I was like, that's not entirely necessary or
that's not
fitting
entirely
with-
necessary, And I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if Selena Gomez like okayed this. I don't know. I just got very concerned
Maybe
for
she
her.
well, she's trying to get away from that Disney.
Yes.
She is,
That's
yeah.
for
and
sure.
and
I mean,
this
don't
is
get
a
me wrong.
very
Like,
different
power to your
character.
side
I mean,
boob.
Yeah.
is I guess the point of seeing her in the shower pretty much is so we see her whale tattoo, I guess,
Mhm.
Right.
for future Hardy Boys. But yeah, I remember watching, I was like, that was
A
unexpected.
lot of side boob. It's a
I mean,
heavy amount of side boob.
She looks great,
She
but
looks
I
so
was
great.
I
Hot
was
to
not
try.
expecting that. It's true.
Mhm.
No.
Maybe next season
Um,
we'll have Martin Short side boob
Oh,
or
That
side
would be
cheek.
so funny.
all right.
You know, I
let's
will
get
say he and Steve Martin look fantastic.
They look great.
They're-
fan-fucking-tastic.
aging wonderfully. And I know
I
that they
love
have
it.
both had a little bit of help, which no shame in that game, but they look fantastic.
I
If
love
I
when
look-
Oliver calls says like, "Are you wearing makeup?"
Yeah. He's like, what are you talking about? You're not wearing makeup? Oh, me neither. I loved it. All right, let's go to episode 2. Who is Tim Kono? Additional director is Jamie Babbitt, and additional writers are Kirker Butler. And okay, so Mabel is suspicious of Charles now, right? Who she
Mhm.
discovered he pulled a direct quote from his show Brazos, talking about, his dad and everything.
Mhm.
And Mabel lies about finding no info on Tim Kono, right? She checked all the websites, exhausted the internet. And then she flashes back to the argument with Tim the last time they spoke. Carrie just checked
I
all the
love
websites.
that so much. Yep.
Yep.
Whole
I checked
internet.
all the websites. I know. I loved it too. Okay, then the trio goes to Tim's memorial service in the lobby hosted by Bunny. And we find out nobody liked Tim Kono. Many suspects are with motive are in the building. We got a therapist who also lives on the 6th floor. We got a next door neighbor, Miss Idoko. We got Howard, the lonely cat guy, and who just lost his cat, and everyone cares way more about the cat than they do about Tim. And then at the end, Mabel, all alone in her apartment, she does this little video diary where she explains how she became friends with Tim, Oscar, and Zoe, the Hardy Boys. What do we think?
So I do like that throw out that little line about how now you sound like Patti LuPone. That was like, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Any call out to the Broadway
Patti.
queens. Love it.
Mhm.
Love it. We got a lot of Mabel in the very beginning. We find out like, she's an artist. And I actually like how the story was telling it through pictures of how she was kind of
Love the show
funny.
Don't Tell. I love
Yeah,
it. Show.
I really
so
love
smart.
that.
Mhm.
And I loved how she kind of showed Tim growing up on her iPad drawings. I thought that was
that
really
was sweet.
a really wonderful way of kind of giving that. Tim's a really tragic character, like, so misunderstood. Like, he looks like that, quintessential douchebag who, has his hair slicked back. And, but, just going from Mabel's perspective, she, it was really nice to kind of get that when she started drawing pictures of him, you could see that she cared about him.
Mhm.
That's true.
I got
On
a
a
question.
lighter.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, on a lighter note, Mabel delivers, I think, one of my favorite quotes of the series when she says, I mean, a murderer probably lives in the building, but I guess old white guys are only afraid of colon cancer and societal change.
So I'm telling you, you are so Mabel. It's like you would say that. I can hear it.
It was glorious. And I love how dry Selena Gomez delivers these lines. And it just
the queen.
Chef's kiss.
All right, I got a question for you guys. What do you think about this? Charles is a bad actor. Like, because we see his Brazo show, and granted, okay, like it was a show of the times, right? Like it's acting styles have changed, the way that shows have changed. But I just really don't think that it should be lost on anyone that like he was not a good actor.
No,
Oh yeah.
And
no,
I've always been a little like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, it's funny that he's a bad actor, right? But I always just kind of want him to be a good actor. I don't know. Maybe, and I feel like in my headcanon, like he is now. He just needs to be given a chance.
Yeah.
I think so. I think Oliver helped him. If you think about the very end,
there you go. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think he needed a good partner to help him develop his skills. But no, it's
a
really
good director.
Funny. I thought like I think the show was like supposed to be like in the early 90s, like to me, but like I'm like, oh, that kind of show, like I felt like should have been older just like because 70s. Of the way, or 80s and
early 80s.
Yeah, just like because I'm like, I think of the 90s, early 90s, I think of like Law and Order, and those are good.
Like good procedurals.
Yeah, but like his seems like it was like cheesy and
when he takes out the floss pick.
Oh my gosh.
But I was just going to say, just because like when he delivered those lines when he was trying to break into Bunny's apartment, I guess that showed he was a good actor because it was so well delivered and so convincing and so heartfelt. So
there you go. Yeah.
It was
that's why it's not making sense in my head, because I'm looking at him and I'm like, no, but he's good. But I guess in that moment,
the camera away. Maybe that's what they did.
Yeah. In that moment, he's just being himself, because that is, we learn later.
I remember wondering that moment where Mabel realizes that, Charles was line for line going over a monologue from his TV show. She's kind of suspicious of that. And she's just like, why the hell is he lying? And I was like, I don't think that that's weird. I mean, he obviously, this is his glory days. He's lonely. Like, this was very meaningful to him. Like, that made sense to me. And it just made me kind of not really pity, but maybe a little bit like pity Charles a little bit.
I think that's what you're like. It's very intentional to pity him, but also it's kind of Mabel doesn't trust people. And I think, I mean, just
why should she?
Yeah, with her knitting needles. And I think that's why she's more questionable about that rather than thinking like he's just a sad older guy who just doesn't have anybody or have anything. He's just,
Well, and I think that is definitely because of, being a third party watching the interaction. Because if I were Mabel and I had observed that, I would be like, what the fuck is up with this guy? Like, that is shady as hell. Why is he lying to me? I can't trust him. But I don't know. I just felt so bad for him as an observer.
Yeah.
And I do love that we get our lovely introduction to Evelyn.
I know.
In this portion, and the little ensemble cast that they have going on with all the residents is just
Michael Cyril
lovely.
Creighton as Howard.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Fun
Fabulous.
fact,
our Marvelous Maisel, tie-in. Yeah.
Apparently allergic to cats in real life, which
No
makes
way.
this
Oh my God.
so much funnier to me.
Oh my God.
But I just that, and how Charles, like, everybody is so much more upset that Evelyn has died than their fellow resident who they all hated because he had was asthmatic or something, and they couldn't use their fireplaces. And Charles seeing Howard, crying and emoting, he was like, I didn't cry that much when my mother died.
I know. Savage. We also get an introduction to Bunny, Jane Howdishell, a savage. Love her.
Bunny.
Love her. Oh, such a great actor. And we get a couple of other clues too. We hear Teddy Demas also lives on the 6th floor and has a deaf son. A little shoehorny the way that was added in there. He was like, the way that Oliver said, he's like, he's like munching on the dips, remember? And he's like,
the dips.
I love that.
We need some dips while we do this.
It's like, I haven't had an entree.
Dips for dinner. I haven't eaten an entree in 20 years or something.
Oliver is such a true bohemian. I love him. I love him so much. He really is.
Especially with that fabulous purple coat.
I know.
Scarves.
I love
him.
And
truly it is like another thing that I have in common with Oliver. I am obsessed with sauces and dips. Like, obsessed. I am not kidding.
Oh my God.
I literally have a restaurant in Times Square that I go to exclusively just to order their side sauces. Like, I get like 10 cups of side sauce, keep them in the fridge, eat that kind of sauce with everything because I just love it so much.
This
and
is making me hungry.
I'm starving. I'm going to go break out the hummus and some
I'm going to rehearsal
cucumber
later.
dill.
Yes.
I'm gonna pick up my dips a little later. So then we get another little tidbit. Mabel says to Tim as a kid that her aunt lives in 12A. And later we see she moved to 12E and Bunny lives in 12A. And I'm not going to say any more about that, but it does come into play in season 2.
Interesting.
So you're right. I forgot about that.
Drew your way through season 2, then that is a clue. And we get introduced to Zoe, the crazy rich bitch, life of the party, or serious unhinged kleptomaniac. The
Did
question.
Not like her.
Up to you. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the rest of the episode. Ursula gives Charles and Oliver Tim Kono's classified complaint files, and the three decide to break the apartment. Yes. And they snoop around in Tim's apartment. They discover Tim was having money problems and has a weird, kinky sex toy box.
Oh, God.
Then Mabel flashes back to New Year's Eve party with the Hardy Boys, showing that something happened to Zoe, and her boyfriend, Zoe's boyfriend, Oscar, got blamed for it. And Tim knew that Oscar wasn't involved. It was someone else. And he said nothing to the cops. And we learn Howard's cat, Evelyn, came into Tim Kono's apartment after he died.
Poor Evelyn.
All right,
Sevelin.
Not Sevelin. Sevelin's yet to come.
Yes. I love that so much.
I know. I do too.
Oh, gosh.
So I just want to throw in like Ursula, like she was, oh my God. But I just like the fact that Charles doesn't tip because he thinks it's elitist. Like, I'm like, oh God, I know this guy. I know him. He just gives autograph photos.
Oh my God, I know.
So bad. Horrible.
Public service announcement. Tip people who provide services for you. Please over tip. It doesn't matter. They provide a service. Tip, please.
Word.
Autographed photos.
Oh my God.
And Vanessa Espiga as Ursula. So funny. I love this actor.
Hilarious.
And
gut milk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Our introduction to gut milk. So I was watching this episode like on my phone to listen to last week, and I could not remember for the life of me what it was called when Oliver runs out with, Tim's sex toys. And I was like, I know it's a whip, but like there's a name for it. And so on my work computer, without thinking, I Googled like name of sex toy whip. It's a flogger, FYI. I
Oh my God.
just like
Right,
did
you
it.
are.
So if the, lead partner of our firm happens to be checking our internet history, I'm going to have to be like, just go listen to this episode of our podcast.
There are
'cause-
reasons.
But
Yeah.
with your line of work, maybe you could kind of
Oh,
say,
yeah.
yeah, I'm just doing some investigation
absolutely.
work. Yeah. Oh, that's
Stuff
hilarious.
Has sex toys frequently come up in family
Yeah.
law situations?
I'm
So,
Totally.
but
But
it was just,
instead of saying Mr.
Ugh.
Vanilla took a turn down Rocky Road, we could just
Oh,
say
yeah.
Miss Vanilla took a turn
Yes.
down Rocky
I'm
Road.
like, oh, I know. But I just, that whole scene when they, go into his apartment and it's kind of like the reality hits them that there was actually a dead body here and it's a crime scene and there's still blood. And Oliver's like, oh my God, is it his blood? Is it my blood? Like just
Am I bleeding through my
flipping out.
shoes?
Yep. I was like, yeah, guys, like this
So
is real. Somebody died.
Again,
But
little meta again.
yes.
These like true crime is not like made up. This happened to
Mhm.
somebody. It happened to
Mhm.
someone's family. It's
Exactly. And I will say too, I love Tim's Hardy Boy collection. I was like, I collect all the like old Nancy Drew hardbacks.
Oh, yes.
And
God, I
it
love
just,
them.
yes, it just
I
makes
love the
me so
painting.
happy.
Yes.
I inherited that collection from my mama when,
Yes.
I have all the Nancy Drews as well.
Love
It's
it.
just so good.
Oh, so
But
good.
I love the Hardy Boying of it all. Like that
Mhm.
whole aspect of the first season in particular is just fun.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I love when he was like, you're too old for that kind of reference. And it just speaks to Mabel's like, no, I know things. I'm an old
Yeah.
soul.
She is.
Yeah.
She really is.
I also think, Zoe, again, like when you get to go back to Long Island to get finger fucked by your cousins. I'm sorry, what?
Ew.
This
Yeah.
girl, red flags.
Do
man.
not
It
like.
just-
Mhm.
yeah, every time I hear that line, I'm like, what?
It's
Who
gross.
says
Yeah.
this?
So gross. But you know what?
We-
Maybe with her klepto and that, maybe she's, who knows? Ugh.
Yeah. I
Something's
don't know.
going
This
on
girl
with
needs
Zoe.
a little bit of help. We also get
Mhm.
one more good Oliver meta reference, which I loved. He said, whenever I direct a new show, the hardest part is getting to know each other or trusting each other. And he goes, you know what? That's what we're doing here, guys. We're starting a new show. And I'm like, we're starting a new show. Yes, it's so good.
He has
Okay,
such
so-
funny lines. I can't. Like
know.
I had to stop myself from writing everything.
Every
down.
single one down, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so then Mabel confronts Charles about quoting Brazos. What the fuck, man? She also confronts Tim Kono's dead body, spirit, whatever, corpse, whatever you want to call it. And she asks, why he didn't tell the cops the truth that night and if it had anything to do with, quote, what happened back then. And then she finds Tim's stolen jewelry hidden in a Hardy Boys book. And it ends with Mabel saying that Tim never lied except once. But
Mhm.
she vows to find out who Tim Kono really was. I'm gonna fucking find out.
I got so chills. That one, the actor who played Tim Kono, he's really good, and that was just so creepy to see him speak without.
Julian Seehee.
Yeah, he was really, really good.
He
And
was, yeah.
really, really played well. But you could, like I said, like you could tell like how like sad and something's going on with this guy. But like to have him act with that head wound was just the.
Yeah, we get
super
another
gross.
surreal moment, right? Like the
Mhm.
bounce back thing.
Yeah.
It's another
Yeah.
Yep.
out of reality moment. I just have to say though, while we're on the subject of Julian Seehee, I always have a hard time buying him. So Tim is supposed to be like a bit OCD. Mabel
Mhm.
says he always made the sensible choice, right? He's observant and robotic,
Mhm.
but kind if you looked at him the right way. But he's an asshole most of all, right?
Mhm.
Julian just seems so nice. I just have
Yeah.
a little bit of a hard time
Yeah.
buying him as this, like when he's on the phone in the elevator and he's like, why does this keep happening? I'm like, it's
There's
not an
something
insult at
about
all.
his-
Maybe the child actor is like kind of
Yeah.
helped that. Like he was good. Remember
He was good. Yes, he was
Yeah.
actually totally viable as being a little bit like unhinged, but I don't know. For some reason, I just never really buy this actor as being like the crazy asshole that he's
But
supposed to be.
we only
Not
got
a disrespect to him. He's a good actor.
I'm
but-
trying to think
Yeah.
of what like the time that we had with him was the elevator
Mhm.
and like when he's alive, the elevator, and then when they were doing their scavenger hunt of breaking into the other residents' homes, and you barely had any interaction with him, and then on the roof party. And
Well, but I do have
Yeah.
to say, during this moment when he was shot in the head, he does have that really funny. I just love the way he delivers, like, it hurt, but like not as bad as this. Like the way he
yeah,
says that. So
yeah,
he's
it's interesting.
great. Like he
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
really great actor. I just don't know that, like, something about his face, his energy. I just don't know that I buy this like asshole nature of him. I don't know.
He does have like
That's
a
fair.
very beautiful face, like like very like soft eyes. Maybe that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
That's
But
true.
and
Yeah.
also I don't know, I guess I'm kind of changing my tune as I'm talking, because he's not really an asshole. He's totally justified. And
Yeah.
we find out
Mhm.
later why. So
Because
yeah.
it's a front,
Very much.
really.
Yeah.
Like he's not truly an asshole. But I just
Mm-mm.
I cannot get over the makeup in this
Oh
scene
God,
with
Yes.
that
practical effects.
gunshot wound
Oh
down
my
to the
God.
stippling from the gunpowder and like the
Mhm.
close range shot around his mouth. And that was honest, like that was, it kind of made my stomach flip
Yeah,
because it
I
was
couldn't.
so
It was hard to
realistic.
watch it. Yeah, it was really.
Yep.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right on.
I just, I have seen quite a few autopsy
Mhm.
photos and things like that from working as a prosecutor before, and this just, it gave me chills because it felt so realistic. I was like,
Yeah.
whoever did the makeup did an absolutely brilliant job. And I
Totally.
love that I got that unsettled feeling, because I feel like that's
Mhm.
that's how Mabel's feeling, that's how we're supposed to feel. And the stippling added so much too, because if
Mhm.
even just the the brutality of this open bloody wound in his head, like that's brutal enough, but the fact that they went so far as to detail the stippling was just, it was so well
True
done.
crime aficionado
Yeah.
is impressed over here, I can tell.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It
All
was
right.
it was
I think
intense.
this is the part where if you're watching this as for comedy, it kind of reminds you, oh,
Yes.
this is a murder mystery, and they're not,
Yeah.
shying
Gets
away
dark.
from
Yep.
showing
I
something
know.
so
They
like
balance the
gross.
tone well in this show.
They do.
All right, so episode 3, How Well Do You Know Your Neighbors? Directed by Gillian Robespierre, which is an awesome last name.
It is.
And the guest writer on this one is Ben Smith. So we flash back about 15 years to Oliver
Mhm.
pitching Splash to Teddy Demas, who agrees
Jeez.
to fund the project. And we meet Oliver's ex-wife, Roberta. And we learn, Oliver he used to be very enthusiastic and hopeful about his career. And then we flash to now, and Oliver and Charles are setting up the podcast, and Oliver continues to have money problems.
Mhm.
Bunny is threatening to evict him, and the trio make a murder board. They discuss their suspects, and Oliver holds murder suspect auditions on his head stage, right? And ends up zooming in on Howard.
I don't know about you guys. The thing I wanted so much, I wanted it to be Splash a musical, but based off the movie with Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks. I was really
Yes.
disappointed
Nice.
it wasn't.
I know.
I loved the concept. I pictured it in my brain. I wanted this musical to happen, but when they started retelling what happened as the dumb chorus boys started diving, I'm like, oh yeah, this
Oh
is
my God.
terrible. Rain or water effects on stage is a nightmare. I did a production of Singing in the Rain. It was community theater.
Oh gosh.
And we did have it rain on stage. And for a community theater that was in a church basement, I'll have to
Wow.
show you pictures. It was incredible. And
I definitely need pictures of this.
we
Yeah.
danced in freaking rain, and it was amazing. But like, just water is so hard to deal with. So like, yeah, Oliver is.
Did we
wow.
ever put your show pictures
No,
on Instagram? We still haven't done that.
I'll
Okay,
send
we
you,
gotta do it.
I'll send you some.
We need some from your Singing in the Rain moment too. We need
Yeah,
to.
For
I'll
sure.
send-
Listening to Splash, all I thought of was liability and all the lawsuits that
Dude.
come from
Me
that.
too. Oh,
Uh,
bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Oh, the diving.
Splat.
Yeah.
I gotta call out Martin Short's wig. Can we just have a round of applause for that?
Yes.
Because I laughed so hard. I remember the first time I ever watched this years ago, and I cracked up. I was like, that wig though.
Yep.
Then my second crack
good.
up moment was Steve Martin playing the concertina.
Yes.
I
You're
loved it.
scoring a murder mystery, not DJing a hobbit's wedding. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the potato famine. I was so
It can
funny.
be very haunting. It transports. I loved it. I loved it.
Oh my
So good.
God.
I love how he was actually playing.
Well, Steve Martin
Like,
is a musician.
He's so talented.
Yeah.
And
So
he learned the concertina for this role.
Mhm.
and like
He-
with so I got to see the bluegrass group Steep Canyon Rangers that he worked
Oh,
with
that's so
for years,
cool. Oh,
and
wow.
Paul Simon, and it was like one of the best things I've ever witnessed in person. And I
Wow.
love how they use his, talents, everybody's little like Easter eggy talents here and there in these episodes, but he just, he's so talented.
I
So
love
talented.
that. Again, Bunny is horrible, but
Yes.
so I don't blame like how awful and like nasty they are to her. But I just wanted to point out, like, I love how when the call bothered them and it was that Charles was sending the text messages and the autocorrect.
Oh my God.
Duck, Scott. I mean, because we all know the pain of autocorrect. It autocorrects everything I put. Love
That
it.
was so funny. What sounds more casual, dear Mabel or greetings, Mabel?
I found the perfect
use both.
introduction to the text. Aloha, Mabel.
I would use all of those greetings.
And Mabel's like, you don't have
so
to sign your
cute.
text. I know it's you.
Oh my God.
My favorite part of this episode, though, it's another Oliver moment, right? Another Oliver quote. The only view you're going to get is from the back line. Nobody wants a murder podcast about real estate. God.
Were you singing chorus line the whole time?
Oh, yeah.
I really need this job.
Just every time he went back line, I just cracked.
Oh, so
Funny
good.
to me. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't find Martin Short's like
Oh
funny.
God, I love it.
I find
love
it
it.
so funny. I grew up watching my first time I ever saw Martin Short as a kid was in this movie. I think it was a Disney, maybe it wasn't a Disney movie, A Simple Wish.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. When he's like,
Yes.
like with that girl from Matilda, what was her name?
Oh, I forget her name.
Is it Mara?
Yeah.
Mara Wilson.
Is it Mara Wilson?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Turner.
Yes.
Oh, and Amanda Plummer. Oh, the acting greatness in this children's movie. That was like one of the most played VHSs in my household. I was obsessed, and it was one of the major films that made me think I need to be an actor. I need to be an actor, man. Just watching these great actors go at it in such full force and have such fun. Oh God. So yeah, when he was going back line, it was like just reminding me of that character he played. It made me so happy.
I would love to see the behind the scenes of the show being created, because I bet it's like so much fun. I can't. I love it.
All right, let's go on to the next part of the episode. Oliver visits Teddy, who refuses to grant the $35,000 sponsorship of the podcast. Then Mabel and Charles meet Jan in the elevator.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. And then they go to Howard's place to get him to talk about Tim Kono, to kind of prompt him a little. Yeah. And Howard believes that Tim killed Evelyn. And then we find out he faints at the sight of blood, and Howard is crossed off the suspect list.
So it was really funny when I was looking at this, like how it started off. What was it? He wanted 32,000, and then eventually by the end it went up to 35.
35, always more.
Oh my God, always more. I like how this show kind of threw in how I think Oliver is brilliant. Like, I think like the way his mind works, and he's magical. However, he makes a lot of mistakes, and how he talked Teddy out of financing Les Mis, Mamma Mia, and Hamilton. Like, I'm like, oh God.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Face palm.
They
face.
picked the one
God.
founding father with no pizzazz.
No pizzazz.
And I also just like, Oliver, he has so many problems. Hi, Thomas. It's like, I love it. It just,
I know this man has a problem.
he has a problem. So I just really enjoyed that whole thing. But again, like, just to talk about the nature of these actors, they're so, like, we know Nathan Lane, instantly I think of him of either as Timon, or thinking of him in Birdcage, like
Forgot all about
Birdcage.
that.
like
Oh my
just
God.
just the comic and brilliance, and this, and or even the producers, like, just thinking about
Yeah.
how talented he is, and how, like, he's so larger than life, and he's instead this, like, kind of like mafioso kind of like hard ass, like, businessman who's really scary, like, and we get that kind of like what kind of guy he is. But I really liked what they did with what Nathan Lane did with this character. Teddy's scary.
Oh yeah. Sinister.
Yeah, rare.
I just
And-
love everything Charles and Mabel and their awkwardness with Howard, and Charles trying to get out that Howard is being recorded. He's just like looking at the portrait. He's like,
Oh,
it's
God.
almost as if you're being recorded. And Howard,
Why would you
say it that way? Like, why
Oh
would you
my
say it
God. There was also my favorite line about Barbara. She was a bitch. The cat.
She was a bitch.
That's Barbara. She was a bitch.
Oh God.
We
And
all
then-
had
and
a bitch cat.
Yes.
Right? Didn't we? God, yeah. I mean, there are
Mhm.
just some bitch cats, more
Yeah.
bitch cats than non-bitch cats. And
My two cats are sweethearts right now, but I did have a
Of course,
bitch
yeah.
cat.
Yeah. And the way Mabel keeps saying, "What the fuck?"
Yes. Yes.
As
Oh,
weird as it is seeing Nathan Lane play a villain, it's kind of just as weird seeing Selena Gomez say fuck. It's just
Yeah.
so great. I love this.
And side boob and fuck, you know, it's a
she's
turning
all
a new
grown
leaf.
up.
Right?
Yeah.
She's all grown up. Go Selena Gomez.
Yeah.
We love it. I'm here
Oh.
for it.
And then
Also,
poor Evelyn.
and yeah, why the
Seriously.
fuck does Charles put the leg in his back pocket? Just
I
why?
So weird.
know.
Why
It's
would
just
that be the
weird.
go-to?
I was just like, Charles, what if it thaws? Like,
I was so grossed out, but it
It
does
does.
thaw.
It
It
does
does.
thaw.
Doesn't he
Yeah.
say, like, and
Yeah.
I didn't notice that spell before or something. So
Oh,
grossed out.
gross.
So
Yeah.
grossed out.
Well, we're getting right there. Okay, so Oliver then tells Charles about his splash failure, and we find out that he spent Will's college
Oh,
fund.
horrible.
Ouch.
Yikes, yikes.
Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Oliver then meets Sting in the elevator with Winnie, who says he doesn't like dogs.
Don't stand so close to Sting. I love it.
That was so
love it.
funny.
So stupid and
there-
cheesy.
There
I
may have
know.
been one too many don't stand so close to Sting. I think that maybe they could have scaled back on one less. Just my opinion.
Ugh.
Hot takes, I know. All right. Then Oliver gets Teddy's, he does get the sponsorship. And so then he immediately drops the first podcast episode, and Charles is pissed. And then Mabel goes to Oscar's dad looking for him, and she finds Tim's post-it that says GM 131, 4:30 p.m. Shore Road.
Mhm.
And Oliver finds Winnie poisoned.
Oh,
and
that
then
was so
Aw.
horrible.
end the podcast, or I end you.
So much violence towards animals. Oh,
Seriously.
my goodness. Boo.
Ugh.
Boo.
Poor Winnie.
Yeah. Is Sting the only real life celebrity
On this
so
season,
far
yeah.
in this
And-
season?
Yeah.
I have to do a rewatch. Okay. And I'm wondering if that's why they kind of like went over the top with the references, because I think if I met Sting, I think I get very starstruck. I might have done some stupid punny things to
Mhm.
like Oliver, because I'm like, Oliver's awkward when he's with people in the elevator. So
No,
Oh,
it wasn't that call out I had a problem. It was when they were in Sting's apartment and Charles was like, I
Oh,
feel like I'm
God.
close to Sting. I'm like, yeah, we already
Yeah.
made that joke. Move on.
let's do another
Yeah.
song reference.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that there was one other mention, like, about Oscar. Like, I think we didn't get to meet him yet, but we know that he was in prison for 10 years and his dad wants him to have a fresh start and doesn't want Mabel near him. So I think just from that takeaway,
Right.
and is that something really horrible happened. But yeah, I know we get more from the next episode when it comes down to it. But I do love the introduction of the Post-it, because that was like, our clue to seeing like, ooh, what's going on with this?
Mhm. That was good.
Also, Mabel's mom and Oscar's dad, I'm just realizing, are very similar. They're both
Mhm.
like, get out of my kid's life. Fuck off. Or
Yeah.
I mean, her Mabel's mom doesn't have a problem with Oscar. She has a problem with, why are you hanging out with Tim Kono?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He fucked
And
over
also
Oscar,
just
yeah.
staying away from the city. Like she didn't want her to go back there, like leave that life, stay where you're at. And she
Yeah.
always seems to want to escape her life.
It's true.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't know. Like this whole Charles and Mabel exchange when he's playing the concertina, their chemistry is some of the best. Like Steve Martin and Selena Gomez together just
You
cracks
liked
me up.
it.
Yeah,
You liked it, right?
Is that what my face was saying? I was like, oh, that's good. It just makes me so happy. But I do
So
remember,
good.
like, when we found out Winnie was poisoned, I was like, if this fucking dog dies, I'm not
Mhm.
watching. I cannot
listen, it's
handle
bad
it.
enough that Evelyn died, but yeah, I agree
I
with
was
you.
so upset.
Don't hurt
True.
animals.
There's a lot of animal scary animal shit happening in a very short amount of time in this series. Yeah.
And this kind of goes against one of my things about watching certain things. If I find out that something happens to an animal, I usually choose not to watch it, or little tiny kids, like innocents. Like I don't like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
innocents get hurt, but it's okay. I forgive them. He's okay.
No animals were harmed in the making of this show.
And it's good that Will is a vet. Like I love the fact that Will is a vet,
Yes.
so that we know that not
That is
only
good.
is Will is Winnie going to be okay, but Winnie was being taken care of and was away from that piece of shit Jan.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
So getting a question about this this amount of money that Teddy is paying for this podcast. I just wow. Anyone out there with a extra 35K to spare?
Yeah, right.
Hey, you can advertise on us. We will advertise every 5 minutes.
Hey, you know, it's chicken wrap month and we will happily boost your chicken wraps on this podcast. If you want to fund us for 35K, you know, it's always more with me. Please.
I wonder, I'm curious, like that's a really good point. Like how much does the advertisement typically cost on a?
Well, I just think it's an outrageous amount of money. I'm trying to understand. We never really understand why the Teddy thing is a little vague.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think? And I guess it's answered. Well, I'll save that question because I know it's going to come up later when we get more of Teddy.
Yeah, I think I had
a lot of money.
It is a lot, and I think if we want to talk about later, I think I had some thoughts about that.
Yeah, the only other thing I have was yeah, as you were saying with I think Erica, you were mentioning this, Oliver's problem being like selfishness with the whole Splash thing. You know, he lost his family because he tends to leap before he looks, you know, and I really feel for Oliver.
I do
in
too.
This whole series, you know, I can relate so hard to being like a total idiot and then just regretting it so bad. How I've, you know, basically pushed people away unintentionally. Yeah, so relatable.
I mean, he's an artist, and his art is a priority to him, and he feels like his art will.
True.
Maybe he felt like it would make everything better if he's able to do it. Like he spends his child's college fund, but from that he lost his career, he lost his family, he lost everything except for Winnie. His Winnie and his, I guess, his home, but it's a facade. He doesn't have anything. He's like not paying his bills.
And Charles is so sweet though. He's like, you push people out of your comfort zone. You know, because you got him to meet Howard and like record him, and then he whips out the cat leg and he's like, I don't get involved with people, but I just met a very strange man and knocked a frozen cat out of his freezer. I still have its leg. And Oliver's like, oh God. He's like, but it's warm now and that smell is new, but it's also kind of thrilling. And it's all because of you. I mean, you're insane, but that's usually who people want to follow. And I'm like, yep, that's me. All right.
That's true. That's true. See, they helped each other. They did. They became better. They became better. I don't want to say versions, but like it definitely, like they improved where like they had the baseline skills or whatever they had, and they were able to kind of, their strengths helped each other, you know, create something beautiful, if not beautiful, amazing, and people loved.
Started their bromance. Anything else we got before we move on?
No.
Okay. Episode 4, The Sting. Directed by Gillian Robespierre again. Writing, the guest writer is Kristen Newman. So Cinda Canning recording her podcast, doing her thing. Oliver calls his son Will over to his house because he's a vet to help Winnie. And Charles looks at Lucy's notes, her the notes that the cards that she wrote him. Porky Pig and Bugs Bunny are standing next to him. Then Sting becomes the number one suspect because, he hates Winnie and Tim Kono managed his money. And Charles gets an interview with Cinda Canning from his neighbor, Arnav. And the trio meet Jan in the elevator on the way to meet Cinda Canning. And Cinda Canning advises a turkey and says, embrace the mess.
Yeah. So I loved kind of like this. We delved into almost like where we developed this like red herring, like, the Sting was like, and I never bought it that it was him. I just thought it was ridiculous, but I loved, I love the fact that they compared him to a red Buddhist OJ. I fucking hate OJ Simpson.
Buddhist OJ.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And yeah, it just like, I really liked how we got this dive into Cinda Canning and how much of an asshole she is. But this was also where we first meet Poppy. And we could see how Cinda talks to her. She's like, oh, she has a voice, but the writing will come. Like, just,
so condescending.
Yeah, so condescending. But like, we'll later find out how important Poppy is to the series. But yeah.
I just love how, this show does a really good job at kind of winking at viewers. In the very first episode, Martin Short says something about, Charles auditioning for him. And he's like, are you not Scott Bakula? And he's like, no, oh, you're the other guy, which is hilarious because when they were younger, Scott Bakula and like Steve Martin got mistaken for each other a lot. And then in this episode, like Cindy, the actress who plays Cindy and Stringfield is Steve Martin's wife in real life, and there has always been this kind of like cheeky back and forth about how much she looks like Tina Fey, and so bringing her in to be a part of like these lookalikes and these almost like Cinda Canning
value pack.
So I loved it. It made me really happy, and I think they do a great job, like kind of going into the absurdity of Cinda. And we definitely see that come back later in the season.
Tina Fey, really, again, another character who I'm more used to her, like, like that cheeky, likable Liz Lemon, but again, like they kind of went into the different route, like where it's not her typical typecasted character, where she's like just
and she kills it. Delightful surprise.
Like now she's just like sardonic and sassy, and it's
one thing.
Oh, I was going to just say that they're acquired for $30 million. Yeah, and she was just like, so, like, okay,
yeah. She's like, yep, big day. I love all of the three of them too. How they're just like, I love you. Like they're they're such huge fans of hers. It's so great.
Oh yeah.
I gotta say one thing about this section. There's a hilarious look on Steve Martin's face when he knocks on Arnav's door and he opens the door. And listeners, you gotta watch it. Like watch this episode and just look at the way Steve Martin is like leaning on the door with this cheesy grin. He's like, hi. How's it going?
Cute.
It really tickled me, that look. All right, so then Charles and Jan musically flirt out their windows, serenading one another, and it's adorable, and I love it. And then Charles and Jan go out to dinner, and Jan discusses her life, and Charles kind of clams up and blows it a little. And then the trio brings Sting a morning turkey. And we find out that he fired Tim Kono and telling him in anger to go kill himself. And we're crossing Sting off the suspect list as well.
Well, yeah. Whew. A lot in this one. I do love that we get the puns of "you'll hear me, but sooner or later" came in this episode. Charles and Jan are like the perfect couple. They're so dorky. Perfect. It's a shame that Jan
I'm still shipping them. I'm still shipping them.
I am too. Like it's a shame she's a homicidal maniac and a horrible person.
Hey, she can get help. It will be fine. They will be fine. Okay. I'm hoping season 3, my fingers are crossed that she is coming back. And then I need a marriage. I need something.
Justice for Jan. No, I think if like she did what she didn't do at the very end, I think maybe she could some redemption, but she was trying to kill everybody. Like, yeah, she's a quirky character, but like a lot of things were kind of like nuggets were thrown in this episode. Like that's where she left him his note. And also the whole idea of Porky and Bugs. And again, that was like another, like, wait, what was this?
Surreal moment.
Yeah, you're like, why is Porky and Bugs here? And then when you find out later why, it's like so heartbreaking. It's just so upsetting. But like there, you're just kind of like, okay, why are there two characters just sitting there dancing? Jan mentioned that she was second a lot. And I think that kind of dives into the type of character she is. She's really like, has major middle child syndrome. Like she wants to be you know, felt important, and she is, you know, and I wonder if that's kind of like reason I really am curious how that kind of ties into the end with Tim. But yeah, I thought this was really,
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
There's more in the end. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a big red flag when someone at a first date is asking you, so tell me how your parents traumatized you. Let's talk about our exes. I'm like, yeah, red flags. Red flags. That is something you don't do on a first date. That is classic 101 first date. Don't do.
Well, it feels like, especially on a second watch, it felt like she is mining for information so she can manipulate him and, you know, kind of have some control and pull puppet strings when she needs to. And I also love, oh gosh, what's her name? I just drew a blank. What is the
Amy Ryan
name? Thank you. I was just like Holly from The Office.
Yeah.
I just love watching her be kind of a little sinister, and she does it so well because in general her natural energy is just kind of disarming and you want to like her. But there's also like a hint of crazy in the background at all times, and it's fun to watch. She does
this character
great job.
Jan is so Holly on crack. Like she is Holly, but like the creepy horror version of Holly.
So amplified,
She reminds me of like a little creepy child in like what is that movie about the doll that kind of comes to life, or like the
Annabelle?
Yeah,
or the
like
Conjuring.
that. Or Chucky or something, you know, she's like that.
Yeah.
It's just Holly unhinged.
She's Tiffany. She's Tiffany because, you know, Tiffany is quite unhinged. Oh, she's Chucky's bride.
Bride of Chucky.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Very like maniacal and sinister, but also you kind of want to be her friend.
Totally. This made me so happy when I realized what was happening in this show with Amy Ryan.
Did you realize it back then? Like, did you kind of have that idea that she
seemed off? I thought, I was like, they're basically making her seem like we shouldn't be suspicious of her, and she's so likable. I was like, so it's probably going to be either another red herring before we find out who is actually the killer, or it's going to be her. Which I still did not mind.
No. All right, so moving on. Charles then opens up to Jan about his last breakup. You know, he comes through her door and talks about his life, and Mabel discovers Montrose Gems on Shore Road in New Jersey, and she thinks that's what Tim's post-it means. And then Will tells Oliver and Charles that Mabel knew Tim Kono and that their friend Zoe fell off the roof and died 10 years ago. And Mabel is heading to New Jersey, followed by Tie-Dye Guy.
Yeah. So I touched on this already. It's just when we find out about Charles' ex, Emma, and her daughter Lucy, and she was only 7, and they were together for 6 years, and just how Emma left him by himself on a family fun cruise on their anniversary. I just so heartbreaking. And Steve Martin, like, wow, I was so upset. It was so sad. And that reveal, like, really, it justified like what he went through in this.
What a
like
bitch.
He's never. She's horrible.
She didn't like that he got close with Lucy, like her 7-year-old. Why would you not like that?
Oh, she sounds like an asshole.
In real life, I could think of reasons why, but like,
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. I didn't even actually think of that.
We're not
because
going. I
I've
hope
already-
we're not
Yeah.
going that
No,
route.
isn't it
We're
funny?
not.
Isn't it funny how like I never would consider that's so funny. I didn't even
well,
consider
you're not supposed to in the context of
Yeah.
the show. Like, that's just my brain.
Steve Martin is
being-
just so there's nothing creepy about him in that
No,
way. Like
not
to
at
me
all.
at all. And I
He's
just didn't even
all
think
green
of it.
flags. Like,
Yeah.
Green. Yep.
Yep.
I just feel like maybe what it is Emma sounds like she was very self-centered
yes,
and
she
wanted
wanted
that attention.
all the attention.
Mhm. And for them to go
Sure.
to a family fun cruise for their anniversary, it just like me, I would, because you know
Yeah.
that's my family is my family, but like it just seems like she would probably
Poor
wouldn't want to go to.
Charles.
Yeah, it was so sad. It was so sad, and he never sought any type of therapy, obviously. But this was, I
Mhm.
guess, his therapy, so that's good that he was able to get that and kind of move forward.
Every
Yeah.
character on this show needs therapy, but they're so
Mhm.
entertaining because they haven't gone.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Got anything else,
Ugh.
guys, before we move on? Oh, I just
no.
realized I forgot to say Cinda Canning also at the end announces her new podcast,
Mhm.
Only Murderers in the Building.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was crazy that like Cinda is already jealous of like Only Murders in the Building. But then I realized, oh, this like it for some reason it wasn't clear to me that this was a flash forward to
Mhm.
like the end.
Yeah.
I just never thought that was very clear storytelling. That was the one time I was like, this like it took me like 3 or 4 rewatches because I've watched season 1 maybe like 4 times, you know. I watched it twice to like prep.
It
for
happened
this
at a weird
podcast, but-
part. I think it happened at a weird part of the
Yeah.
season. Like if
I
it was
think I had
closer
to
obviously-
rewind it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it wasn't obviously a flash forward.
Yeah. I think we're getting a lot more into the chase of like what are these unanswered questions that Mabel's been collecting. I
Yeah.
think that she still doesn't trust Charles and Oliver to
Mm.
like bring them into what she's dealing with. Like it's 2 mysteries that's going on right now. Like they're focused on Tim Kono. She's focused on what happened to her friends and
Right.
Yeah.
justifying that. So I think with that, but the most important part of this episode is that we know Winnie is okay. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Thank
which was my
goodness.
worry.
Ugh.
All right, let's go on to the next episode. Okay, episode 5, Twist. Director Don Scardino and additional writing is Themby Banks. So Oliver gets suspicious of Mabel. Tie-dye guy turns out to be Oscar, out of 10-year prison sentence, and reveals himself to Mabel. He drives her to New Jersey. And Oliver and Charles take Oliver's car, Aphrodite, to chase Mabel and Oscar to Long Island, it turns out. They go into Long Island.
I think my favorite character of this episode was Aphrodite.
Yeah.
I do.
Fair.
I liked how we're being reintroduced to the knitting needle because it plays a big part.
Mhm.
Right?
I think we're like just so conscious of it, like how, especially because it's the first thing we see in the beginning of the series is a murder. So we're seeing Mabel in action. I think my favorite thing about the whole Aphrodite scene was just the interaction between Martin Short and Steve Martin. Like, oh, look, a jelly bean from 1962 in the ashtray. Oh, is it a Mexican diet pill? No, it's a fen-phen. And I'm like, oh God, not
Oh,
fen-phen.
jeez.
So
Yeah.
I did enjoy that interaction. It was really silly and hilarious. And or even just like the physicality of Steve Martin trying to keep an eye on her until Oliver
Mhm.
brought the car where he gets the pretzel. He's like, it's
Okay.
just so
So
ridiculous. Please.
No, the Charles, he says to the pretzel guy, I'll take 1. And then he says, Oliver wants as usual, right? The
Oh,
pretzel
yeah.
man hands him 2 plain ass pretzels. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
His
really?
usual.
Who production people, whoever is on this, like you couldn't have he said 1, he paid
Just
for
throw in a
1
bag with
and
like,
2. Yeah. And like plain pretzels, nothing on him. I was
you
just
know,
a
he
little
wants all the
bothered by that.
sauce. He wants
I
all the
thought-
sauce on it.
I
Read
thought
out
that
the
was
toppings.
just Oliver being cheeky. Like, he'll have the usual, and it's just a normal fucking
Just plain
pretzel.
pretzels.
I think he wanted something with like honey mustard or something like, oh, no,
That
no,
sounds good.
no, I don't like honey mustard on pretzels.
I'm
No,
hungry.
I want my brown mustard. Me
Oh,
too. I
that's-
am really hungry. Come on. Anytime we talk about Oliver, I think we get hungry.
I know.
I know.
But I fucking love Mabel and how she just, instead of like running or calling the police or anything, she just straight up tackles this guy
Yeah.
and pulls out her knitting needles. Like, yeah, get him. And then
Kara.
it made me happy. And
course.
I love that now this is the reveal of tie-dye guy.
Mhm.
And I want a tie-dye hoodie like they have for their
So-
listeners.
I have one. I left it in Florida at my parents' house.
Gosh.
I need to get my mama to
Yeah.
send it.
Yeah, I would watch a road trip comedy with Martin Short and Steve Martin. Kind of a la Steve Martin and John Candy, planes,
Mhm.
trains, and automobiles. Like it would be a winner.
Yes.
I think we need to
yes.
project that. I think we need to like
Yes,
message
put
it
it
in
out
the
into the
universe.
universe.
Please.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I would love that so much.
I also really love Charles' reaction. You pay for parking here? Like, so expensive to keep a car. Just another like one of Oliver's expenses that he can't
Mhm.
afford, you know?
Mhm.
And then Oliver has a really great line. She's got those crazy killer eyes like Eliza at 3 a.m. This image.
Oh, so good.
He's like, please don't tell me that story again.
Oh
So
my God.
like,
Ugh.
I
at
want to hear
Studio
that
54.
story.
Oh my God, it was so good. It really made me laugh.
Oh.
All right. So then while driving, Oliver begins to make Charles question Mabel as well. And Oscar reminds Mabel of her cousin Gustavo Mora, at the tattoo shop on Shore Road in Bayport, Long Island. So then that's where they going.
Mhm.
And Oliver's car breaks down, and these two fine gentlemen, Lucian and Vaughn, the
Oh, I love
horticulture
them.
homies, right? The yard dogs, they drive them to
Oh my
Bayport.
gosh.
I just love the reveal, like where Oliver and Charles, and more so Oliver is like, oh, you have a podcast, you know, like, and they're like, yeah,
Mhm.
60,000 subscribers, and the fact
So
that they're part of
good.
his network, and he's just like, oh,
He is
how many
oozing
subscribers
with jealousy.
yes, he is. I think he mentioned how many subscribers they had. Wasn't it like 13 or something?
Yes,
Can't
and I just want
remember.
to say how do podcasts work in this world? Because there is no way to know
To know.
how many
Mhm.
listens you have. At one point, Mabel,
Yep.
all she does is glance at her phone. Yeah, 4 listens so far. I'm like, no, if there is
It's
a
like,
way,
that's not how it works.
believe me, I have tried to figure out how many people have listened to our podcast and how many people have subscribed. You can't. So I just want to
Mhm.
say there's a fantasy element to the show, and it is the way podcasting
Mhm.
works. Because I wish it was this easy to know these
Yeah.
statistics. You cannot know them. No.
Ugh.
Insider podcast baseball.
There you go.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess like they're really just trying to develop that back, like
Yeah.
we're figuring out who GM is, and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
Gustavo Mora. We're figuring out that Shore Road is in Bayport, where that's where Mabel grew up in, and it's not a good area.
Mm.
And you know, I think that one thing they're starting to, Oliver's idea that not to trust Mabel is kind of making sense because she's not telling the truth as she's going to New
Yeah.
Jersey. So I think that they're justified to be very suspicious of Mabel.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I feel like that's like they're just trying to move
There-
the story along. at
My
this
favorite
point.
moment is when Oliver is doing that speech in the car, and he's like, I know, Charles, she got you to open up, and it's hard, isn't it, to suspect her because of all the great things she brought into your life. Okay, hold on. Let me try that again. That was so
Yep.
ingenuine. He's like, fuck you. That was my favorite moment.
Oh yeah.
Like, one of my favorite moments. That was like a close contender for my most marvelous moment. It was really
Yep.
funny.
I like who is it? Is it Lucian that says Mabel could be mistletoe, brings in like some horticultural knowledge with like she's
Yes.
actually a toxic parasite.
Love that.
Yeah.
I know that was so good too. I loved that he's on the phone. He's like, hold on a second. Let me call you back. My brother just picked up a couple of white boys. That was so funny. Oh yeah, Charles is in Mabel's phone as Charles Old. It's a great little detail.
That was good.
All right, so then they get to the tattoo shop, and Oliver and Charles confront Mabel about lying about her relationship to Tim Kono, and Oscar comes back and confesses that he was going up to Tim's apartment the night that he died. He heard gunshots, and so he ran away. And Tavo says Tim was trying to take down some black market jewelry dealer, Angel, and who wanted to kill him or something like that. I don't know. Mabel then dumps out all the jewelry she found in Tim's apartment. Did he want to kill the black market jewelry dealer, or the jewelry dealer wanted to
kill him.
Right. Tim thought he was going to die. Right. Tim was
Yes.
worried about his impending death, whoever this Angel person is. Right.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably like my least favorite storyline.
Me
Yeah,
too. This was my
I
favorite
agree.
episode.
I didn't really like it, and I think it's because
it was a little weak. It was a little weak sauce.
yeah, I mean, I think the guy who plays Oscar is extremely sweet.
Yeah.
And like likable and all, and I liked his relationship with Mabel, but I just like it was really hard to buy that he spent 10 years in prison.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
he's wrongfully accused, right?
Right, but like, I mean, just the trauma experience of being wrongfully accused of your girlfriend and being in prison
Erica,
for 10 years.
you are like you are like reading my notes literally, and I didn't know how to phrase it, and like that's exactly what you're saying. Like, this actor, there's nothing wrong with him at all.
It was
He's
his
fine.
story.
He's too well adjusted though.
Yeah,
this guy should be traumatized, like severely traumatized, and going through major culture shock. And
I mean, who's to say how anyone is supposed to be?
But
I mean,
like that's how I would.
differently.
Yeah,
but there's an expectation as a viewer that you're gonna get someone who's just not quite so, hey, everything's chill, I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm what do you say?
He fell right back into flirting with Mabel, and just,
which is kind of weird because they weren't a couple. But I mean, like, again, I agree with you, I had nothing wrong with the actor. I thought, and I liked their relationship, but that was really cute. It just,
it's a little boring to me.
It slowed down the story a little bit.
And also it was lame the way that he was like, well, I can't, I just have to not. And then 2 seconds later, I came back with ice cream. I'm like, this is lame writing. This is lame. I'm so lame.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really, and again, it's like, I do enjoy the little bit of tidbits about like, now we're getting to the black market. That's why he had the jewelry. He wasn't some weird kind of person who was just stealing jewelry. It gave, I think I was a little confused with the engagement ring that Tim had. I don't feel like that ever kind of came back into play. The green emerald ring was the more important piece. But the
it comes back into play.
The engagement ring?
Well,
no, the engagement ring.
No, the engagement ring. Yeah.
That never, that did it?
No, it does. It does.
Okay. I couldn't.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, I kind of was confused about that. And I think
no, wait.
I want to write a note, like, was that meant for Jan? Like, I was very confused by that.
You're right. It never does come back into play. You're right. It doesn't.
Like, it was like, I mean, it was part of Mabel's bounce back moment. And we know she had it, but it just never became important.
No, you're totally right.
So
I was thinking
again,
the emerald ring.
Yeah.
Red herring again. Like, I was like, maybe it was meant for Jan? Like, was the relationship bigger than we were led to believe? Or maybe they cut that? I don't know. Like that.
No,
that
it was just, it was a red herring that just kind of faded away and didn't get like, they didn't really explain it.
Unless somebody else noticed something else. Because again, they put a lot of things in there, but that was just something that I don't think
loosened.
Came back. Yeah.
For sure.
I guess,
the whole black market jewelry dealer Angel thing, it just got a little confusing in this part. Yeah, I think a little bit like messy.
I do I like the idea of Angel, because we know Angel is a name. So I like when we find out what Angel represents, I loved that, because that's not where I was leading, like, oh, like this is there, that could be a man, it could be some type of black market, it could kind of be like the obvious, but it wasn't at all. So I think that is something I appreciated from this episode. It's like we had that introduced to what Angel is, not what it was.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next episode, because this one's kind of a cliffhanger. So 6 is To Protect and Serve, directed by Don Scardino, and the guest writer is Madeline George. So we got Detective Dee Williams as a child, right? She didn't want to be lonely. We learn all about that. And she took after a TV show character and started, speaking to the people in her head. Flash forward to today, and she and her wife, Kiara, are expecting a baby. And Kiara's into true crime podcasts, Only Murders in the Building, to be specific. And Dee hates it. And Detective Williams is pissed to find out that Only Murders in the Building is podcasting about Tim Kono's murder. And she believes, it's a suicide, open and shut.
I love that Dee and Kiara are like polar opposites. They are just like such an odd couple. I love the fact that they are like they do not agree with names for their child. I liked getting a little bit deeper there. I was really confused by this reference to Herman's Head because I watched that show. It was a really weird show.
It's a real show?
It was, yeah. Yardley
Wow.
Smith was in it. It was on Fox, and if you guys are younger, but like Fox had these really weird shows back in the day when it first started. Because you remember, like Married with Children was like, it's like first big thing, and Herman's Head was kind of shown with that. And Yardley Smith, who is the voice actor for Lisa Simpson, was in that. And Yardley Smith was in a lot of like weird kind of 80s movies, and I have to think about others, but I remember her clearly from that. And it just was such a weird, random kind of
interesting
like throwback, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, it was to take kind of like Inside Out, like where not Inside Out, Inside Out, where like you're kind of, you have these characters in your brain
in their head.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was an inspiration to Inside Out, but I enjoyed that little, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that show, but it was not like, it didn't impact me that much to go like, why is this being referenced?
It was kind of random.
Yeah, it was a little random, but I did enjoy the back and forth. I think Detective D. Williams is like that, we know this person, this character, this like really rough and gruff, like what she's seen and exposed to on her job. And then she's got this kind of like, sunshiny, like, very like, so completely different. And the fact that she's into true crime podcasts, and it happens to be the one that she just, closed. I think it was kind of a funny little way to connect the story together.
That was clever.
Yeah.
And obviously because Kiara also listens to Yard Dog Homies.
Yeah, I love that.
It. Like, and that's how she found out about it. I was like, oh, I like that. Because it's completely reasonable that that's exactly how it would have come out. And I like how she talks about how, they're good storytellers. They're just a little dopey. Like, yes, they are.
I like how they're creating this universe, like we're now like,
good universe building.
Yeah,
sure.
There really are. Like we're starting to remember it, and we're going to be able to see how everything is. And like I said, like only Sting so far is the only one who is kind of breaking into the real world. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, the world building, I think you're so right on. And it doesn't hurt with the great chemistry between Detective Williams, played by Divine Joy Randolph, and Alicia De La Rue, who plays Kiara. I love these two actors together. I want the spin-off show, please. Like, guys, as an actor myself, I'm going to say this a lot. If you guys, if new listeners, if you've never listened to a Perfectly Marvelous episode before, hi, I'm an actor. I'm going to talk about it a lot. I'm just love it. Embrace it. Be here for it. Because Erica brings she talks about what it's like to experience life with children, right? She's an educator, and she has two lovely, amazing children. She's super mom. And Kara's going to talk about the law and all things street smart. And, this is, we all have our jobs here and we do them well. So as an actor, I'm just going to say, you get a walk-on role, like, guest 2 or 3 episode kind of role, like Alicia De La Rue for Kiara, or even, Detective Williams. She has more episodes, but you jump in, you're dropped into this world, and it is just not easy to insta chemistry with an actor you just met, and you have to convey a lifetime, or not a lifetime, but years of marriage together or whatever. It's just, it's a lot of times when I watch shows, the thing that turns me off is when a couple of guest actors come in and they're not part of the core ensemble, and you can just tell, you could hear the script pages flipping in the distance because it sounds so scripted, and the chemistry is just not there, and it's not just doesn't seem real. I always lose myself in this relationship, and I always forget that they're acting, and I
instantly bought into it.
Oh yeah.
Instantly.
Also, we got another Maisel crossover. Kiara played a character called Dee Dee, who was one of Shy Baldwin's backup dancers.
And her wife is Dee. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, her wife is D. Williams.
And what was the name that she wanted? Keith? Such a manly name. Wasn't
Yeah,
it
because
Keith
she
or
wanted
Bruce?
Kareem.
No, yeah.
Well, that's what Kiara wanted,
That's
but like
I
but
would
Dee
go with
wanted
that.
like Keith or something. Like I'm
I
like,
just I love Divine Joy Randolph the way she's like, fuck no, we're not doing it. I'm not no.
Yeah.
Like I just love her acting.
Yeah.
I have sought her out, and there are other
Mhm.
things that she has been in now at the top of my watch list. I need to see more of this actor. She delights the shit out of me.
Love
She's
it.
so good. Like
She brought in the seriousness that the show like kind of doesn't get to touch on a lot, but it was like what the hell are you guys doing? Like that's where she is. She's like, really?
And there's an interview podcast with her that Only Murders in the Pod, that that Hulu podcast. It's like a companion podcast with the show where they interview actors and writers. And she has an interview on there, and I just love that she says, "I hate true crime. Never watch it. I don't like cop shows.
Oh my God.
I don't like these things.
Yeah.
I don't like scary things. They scare me, And she's just she plays such a tough bitch. I love it.
Mhm.
Such a good actor. Yeah.
Love.
All right. So then Tavo explains Tim was trying to track down jewelry pieces, buying them from Angel. He was supposed to meet Cutter, Tavo's jewelry connection, at the tattoo shop that day, hence the post-it. And Oliver and Charles meet Mabel's mom, and they're upset. And Mabel's mom is upset that she's involved in a podcast about Tim Kono. And she kind of like outs Mabel and like tells all of her struggles about moving on after Tim's death, and she's not accomplishing her goals. She has nightmares and such. And meanwhile, Detective Williams realizes that Tim Kono's phone was never sent to IT, and the toxicology report was not submitted. And Mabel ends up listening to her mom, and she temporarily, for like 2 seconds, resigns from the Only Murders in the Building podcast gang. What do we think?
Aww.
Some takeaways I thought about this is that Oliver mentions Stephen Sondheim, and I instantly wrote R.A.P. because
I
this
know.
was before he passed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice to kind of get a little bit of background to Mabel and the way she is. Her mom is just so regular, like just like Oscar's dad. They're like all the characters in here are so kind of like larger than life, and they're just so like you would see them like walking down the street, and they just want normalcy for their kids. So I feel like it's pretty justified. But it's interesting how Mabel's mom feels like that mother's guilt that she screwed up her daughter by letting her go into the city, where she's like, oh, she goes to the city, then she'll be exposed to culture and go into museums and have a better life rather than where she's at. And she blames herself for that when it wasn't her fault at all. Like it's kind of awful. But and how like Mabel was supposed to focus on her design career and gave that up. So yeah, like it kind of, again, the loss of her friend, the loss of all this is like, has also stunted where Mabel was supposed to or hoping to go to.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked seeing Mabel get a bit more fleshed out and humanized and personalized. And I also I don't know, the fact of seeing Charles and Oliver and how devastated they really were once they thought the podcast was going to be over. And, Charles saying, what do you say? This is the most alive I've felt in a decade. I was just like, oh, I was like, they need this. And then, of course, to bring in a little bit of humor, Charles and Oliver are like commiserating over gut milk instead of like bourbon or something like that. They're just like drowning their sorrows in gut milk. Yeah. I don't know. I
have to say, okay, really quick on the gut milk thing. I found it hilarious listening to, like I said, Only Murders in the Pod. They interviewed the writer of this episode, and she was talking about her gut milk was her invention. And they were saying, oh yeah, it's so funny because it's like a play on got milk, right? And the writer goes, oh my God, got milk.
I didn't even get that.
You guys, I don't even think I got my own joke. And I was like, what? Like that was
I'm embarrassed. I didn't even get that.
That was one of the first things I thought.
I thought of muscle milk.
Like muscle milk.
That's what I thought of, but that's hilarious. But like, it's funny. It's like gut milk. Like I don't want a gut. I want muscles. So but that's hilarious. I love that.
And an energy drink that's 13% alcohol, right?
How's that an energy drink?
I know, and I just love that they're like kind of buzzed as they're drinking this gut milk. Then they're like 13% alcohol. It's giving me abs. Gut
Oh
milk
my
is
God.
delicious. Like I
That's
want some
so
gut
funny.
milk.
I love the gut milk
What
throughout.
else?
There were some funny little lines. I just noted down, like I wrote down, it was a rainbow constructed by a drunken leprechaun. I think that was up at the tattoo shop.
Yeah.
And then,
And I can say that because I'm part Irish and I have a little bit of a
yes.
drinking problem.
I love how he's like, I use context clues. Thank you. It was just, there was just such little lines of banter
Or
going back and
rando.
forth. Yeah.
I
yeah.
use context, but thank you. He's
And
genuinely like, thanks, bud. You got me there because I usually don't know, but this time I think I figured it out.
Mhm. And I also like Twitter is not hard. Don't use TikTok when Mabel was telling. I don't like Twitter. I hate Twitter. I think
I
that's
don't like it either.
It always has been my least favorite
Yeah.
just because
No,
I'm
I
like,
don't use it either.
yeah. So, but it's so
So
funny.
much
Back
drama
then.
comes with the Twitter.
Mhm.
I had one line, what are you guys, 80? I'll have you know, I'm in my very early mid 60s.
Yeah. That was good.
Oh,
There's that
God.
running gag of like, how old are they? I don't know. They're old. They're
Mhm.
really
Yeah, they're old. They're in their 70s. And
Ugh.
we
Yeah,
are
we get-
all randos.
All right. Oh, right. And I do love seeing that moment. I think it's in this section where Oliver and they're drinking the gut milk together and he's like, you knew my phone settings. I'm not a rando. Like they're getting to be more, they're officially friends,
Yeah,
They're
it's so
taking that
cute.
step. I know. It was so cute.
Mhm.
And then speaking of cute, we get that scene, with Detective Williams and her wife. And she's like,
Mhm.
kept telling her about her day and telling her like, oh yeah, this weird shit's happening with the case and maybe there's something to the only murders people. And she's like, oh, you're gonna reopen the case. She's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not no, I'm not doing it. And she's like, maybe I'll do it. But they're just so cute and they have such great chemistry. Oh, I love it. Give me the spinoff.
Sure.
Then end of the episode, Oscar and Mabel finally tell how they feel about one another and they kiss after years of like friendship
Aw.
crushing. It's
Mm.
adorable. And Oliver and Charles visit Teddy, who is ecstatic that Dima's Chicken Wraps has gotten nationally plugged on Fallon.
Of
By
course.
syndicating. And he offers $50,000 for the next 3 episodes. Again, anyone out there, sponsors, if you're listening, got that 50K, I can make very good use of it. Just saying. Links in the description, contact us. And then Teddy tells the story of his family leaving Greece during the Greek-Armenian Holocaust. And Teddy reveals that he has a separate investment business in his Yaya Evangelia's name, Angel Inc. And Mabel rejoins the guys, shocking no one. And
Yay.
he's got Tim Kono's phone in hand, sent by Detective Williams. What do you
Yep.
think?
So I just have to point out that she has Christopher Maloney in her bedroom.
Yes.
Detective
I love
Stabler,
so much.
Zaddy.
I knew Kara was going to have something to say about it. It's in my notes. Kara, were you in love with this man?
I was.
Of course.
Still am.
Yes. Like how Stabler is basically the reason I continued to watch SVU. And then I stopped. And then when he came back, I started watching again.
Well, I love Mariska Hargitay too.
I know.
I agree. I agree.
Mariska.
Sometimes
Now you're
Law
talking
and
my
Order
language.
procedural got to be too much when I was actually prosecuting.
Yeah, of course. I get that.
But with God, I love me some Stabler. I was all for that.
I met Mariska Hargitay and she is a phenomenally wonderful, beautiful person. Like her energy in real life is so, she's just, I have such an actor crush on her. Like I have a regular crush on her, but also just as an actor. So phenomenal. Please, Mariska Hargitay, where did you go? Do more things. Where are you? I need you on my screen.
Yes.
Like, because I wasn't a big fan of Law and Order. I'm, it's just not. It's like sometimes, I've seen enough of it to know that it's a good show. But anyway,
yeah. So I appreciated that. I know this is where the ring comes back into play. Where they recognize that not only was it Tavo's ring was the Green Emerald, it wasn't on Zoe when she died. And so again, like not my favorite part of the story, but like at least we're getting some connection.
And
it was a little confusing, like this Tim buying this jewelry from Angel and this guy Tavo knows all this stuff, and it's just like a little bit, it's too much telling, not showing is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's hard to follow. Yeah,
that's true.
But we all know.
Go ahead.
You know what you're gonna say? I was just gonna say we're just the bottom line here, looking for the green ring. That's it.
I was gonna say my favorite part, like that I love the Teddy Demas villain arc. I think it's great. I love his backstory. I love that they brought the Greek Armenian Holocaust in, because I know that like that comes up to discussion a lot.
Yeah.
And like the pain of this story, and the story of his Yaya bringing this, and the way it was brought into it and how it was passed on. But even talking about his relationship with his father, how his father didn't see eye to eye, it like that story and the way he said it, and so dryly, and how menacing he is, like like took it off of his dead father's hands and make sure he still had it so he could continue that. I really liked that. Like, I think that's where we're like, oh, we know this guy is not good. And I think that at that point, like when we brought up the 35,000, like I just thought, I don't know when, it might have been then, I'm like, is he doing that whole like keeping his enemies closer and buying into it so that way he stays away from him, is where I think that's where I started thinking, okay, that's Teddy's angle. Is not so much that, you know, he likes the show or is into it, or even for his own business. I think it's to kind of pay them off in a way.
Yeah.
We're getting there. I think it's keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Yeah, we're getting there. And I also just want to say this monologue that Nathan Lane gets to deliver, it's like, yeah, is it unnecessary? Does it really, could it be cut? Yes, but I am so glad it wasn't cut. Any chance that Nathan Lane gets to just deliver a fucking monologue in peace, just let this man stand on a stage in front of a camera and just fucking give me monologues, Nathan Lane, all the day, live long day. I'm so here for it. I love listening to this man just tell me stories. Yeah, Nathan Lane is an amazing actor.
Yes.
The story.
I have one other note.
Yeah.
Oliver is eating hummus with a fork. I just
of course. I know.
I'm like, we all know you're gonna eat it anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Oh man, it was so good.
I think this was one of my favorite kind of cliffhanger endings of the season too.
This was where they really had me hooked back in. The end of this episode is great.
Reveal and like their prime sponsor is now their prime suspect. I was like, okay, I'm still in. Like, this is gonna be,
it's intentional, and it feels like, okay, it's not like
it's very well crafted.
Well crafted. Yep. Yeah. Any weak points are very short, not very like, oh, okay, good. Now the boredom is done. And then like I'm being so harsh, just it wasn't boring. Anyway, episode 7. Okay. Right, so you know what? I've made the executive decision. We are going to split this recording, this season 1 recap, into 2 podcast episodes. So this is the end of part 1. Please turn your tapes over to side B, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast while you're doing that.
Little throwback there.
Yes, little retro throwback.
Part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Part 2
coming on up.
Bye-bye.
Mrs. Gambolini, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. No, I'm sorry. That was, you like my Dutch angle right now? It's very extreme. It's like, hey, I got an announcement. So if you haven't already and you enjoyed what you saw and you're going to click over to part 2, subscribe to the channel, do the subscription dance. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Also, I forgot to mention, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/perfectlymarvelouspodcast. And when you sign up to be one of our most marvelous members, you get a ton of bonus things. You get bonus episodes. You see all the full videos of all of our breakdowns and all of our recaps. Also, you get a ton of film and television review episodes from my other podcast, Shall We Compare Thee? It's a remake and sequel podcast. We compare classic films to their modern remakes, and we do other things as well. We're doing some holiday stuff for Halloween, and then we've got some more things planned for the Christmas season. So it's going to be a hoot. It's going to be amazing. Go on over to Patreon. Just, like, take us for a test drive. Try it for a month, and if you hate it, you can withdraw your patronage. I won't hate you. I mean, I'll hate you a little bit, but I won't I won't hurt you or anything. I don't bite hard. So anyway, okay, yes, go to Patreon, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, do all the things. Mwah, I love you. See you in part 2. Bye.